So thanks for chatting today, John. Tell us a bit about yourself. Who's John? What do you do? And most importantly, how would your colleagues describe you?
How would my colleagues describe me? Okay, that's that. So my name's John Morabito. I'm the SVP of Search Innovation at Stella Rising. I've been with Stella Rising now for over 12 years, and really helped to shape our SEO team and now, of course, our GEO services, as well as some of our other service offerings related to innovation. So that's kind of where I got into actually building some dashboards and these types of tools and these types of things. So yeah, that's a bit about me. How would my team describe me? I think they often use the word passionate, but what they probably mean is intense. So I'm very passionate about this stuff. Yeah. So that's me.
Cool. Before we talk about Stella Rising and your work there, give us a bit of a background glimpse at your career. What got you into SEO in the first place?
Yeah, this one. So I follow the traditional canon of an SEO that like stumbled into this via some other sort of like general liberal arts thing that we were doing before. And so I went to school for fine art photography, hence all of the photos. Didn't really have any marketable skills outside of taking photos and playing music. And so my wife at the time, my girlfriend, she was not my wife at the time, but my girlfriend at the time, now wife, found like a Craigslist ad for this job where you could like put teeth in somebody. So let me explain. So basically it was a Photoshop editing job where the job was the perfect set of teeth and put it in somebody who had bad teeth, like the before and after. So that job actually happened to be sort of like a really big moment for me. The basic photo editing job was one thing, but the other part of it was video recordings for a guy named Tom Orant, who is like a dental practice marketing consultant. Free master's education in direct response marketing from like one of these like marketing guru guys, where I'm the guy behind the camera shooting all of it, and he's giving this $50,000 a year consulting program to dentists about practice, the psychology of influence, how to sell. It was really lucky to that experience. You know, I went from there and then I wanted to come down to New York. Started working at a camera shop. Basically, all I could do was Photoshop and do a little bit of video editing. I remember my boss came over to my desk one day and he's like, "Listen, the camera business, this is like 2-3 years after the iPhone. I was like, camera business isn't doing too hot. Can you make a website? Like, we got all these headphones. This is like just as Beats by Dre is about to take off, including some Beats by Dre headphones owned by Monster at the time." And he was like, "Can you make a website?" I was like, "Sure, I know a bit about this." And then like some sort of Old Testament story, about 7 days later, he came back to my desk and was like, "Can you get people to come to the website?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, like somebody taught me about SEO. So I think like I'll do that." And so the reason that this is important is because I actually feel like beginning is now where I'm at, which is I was like, all right, I'm going to do some SEO. Let's make some YouTube videos. Let's reach out to some influencers and get some visibility that way. Let's like do all these things that we're going to talk about later as we get into the presentation, or discussion, I should say, right? About, you know, kind of like we were doing a lot of the current. I just got this, like, no one was like, you should do influencer marketing. I heard of it, but I just was seeing these kids do these YouTube reviews. One of them I remember like worked at Best Buy and he was talking about how he'd use his own money to use his employee discount to buy headphones at Best Buy and then do headphone reviews. And I reached out and I was like, "Dude, we'll send you a new pair of headphones with a return link and you just do the review and send it back." And it's like, I was like doing influencer marketing and 4 people were talking about it and I was like getting it for free. That was kind of the origin of where I started doing a lot of this stuff, like ranking the website. We actually still, if you search headphone store, particularly headphone store in New York, you will figure out where I'm talking about. But I got to name the place, built the logo. If you look at the marquee, it's a logo I designed in like 15 minutes. You know, before AI slop, I was doing logo slop. Anyway, yeah, that was my first job.
Love it.
In marketing, my first 2 jobs. Honestly, where the story kind of ends until we get to Stella Rising. I went from there. Got hired at Flying Point Digital, and I've been there for like going on 13 years now. So that was kind of.
Wow, cool story. I do have many questions. Let's see how many we can tackle. I love that story. Let's go to the now. Give us a glimpse at your life at Stella Rising now. How does day to day, week by week life as John, SVP, Search and Innovation at Stella Rising look like?
So right now, my day to day is often focused on creating partnerships with beyond that, it's really helping to shape like our product offering, if you will. So I've been really focused on productizing our SEO offering into dedicated work streams around social search, GEO, authority building, outreach, etc. We're building out some services around Reddit pretty shortly, and actually are building out some of our own tools and stuff like that. Never to be in competition with you though, Thomas, but sort of like for our own internal use around some of these. So that's a big part of my role, data saying how do we approach addressing these new search surfaces for our client partners without necessarily just having the job of an SEO like de facto growth. The landscape's changing. We want to like be having dedicated work streams with dedicated goals against these things, because as much as search is everywhere, I don't think you want to measure it in one big bucket. And so that's why we've been doing a lot of that. So yeah, I've been kind of like championing those thoughts and helping to set up those conversations and build out stuff that way. I also lead our paid search team. There's been a lot of work that I've been doing and looking at how we can make paid search and SEO work more synergistically, to eliminate wasted ad spend, to identify cannibalistic ad spend. Those are things where it all into holistic strategy.
Love it. Tell us more about Stella Rising. You touched on the teams now. How's your team structured? How is the team structured maybe now differently than it was pre-AI times? Like,
yeah.
walk us through that transformation, if there was a...
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a transformation. I think itself is something that all of the search practitioners on our team are touching and supporting in some way. The next steps of GEO, basically, once you start to do the measurement and you start to shape up a strategy, work to be done. Work to be done often exists in these other landscapes, not always just the website. And so that's where we have dedicated, specialized sort of teams and structures that support that work. In the case of social search, one of the key that we've been focusing, again, have some of our own tooling around for tracking TikTok, support members of our team who are focused on that, as well as people who are basically championing that initiative. They are the ones helping to put together the standards of practice. They're the ones helping to ideate what those deliverable work streams look like. And at the same time, they're helping to support, make sure that work looks awesome as it goes to clients.
I'll give us a glimpse at the clients, the brands you work with. What are maybe some examples, maybe some collaborations you're particularly proud about?
Yeah, absolutely. At Stella Rising, we're really lucky in the sense that we work with some of the world's biggest beauty brands. We work with some of the world's biggest consumer and health and wellness brands as well. Coldwell Banker, Stanford Health, CRM is a fertility clinic. But we also work with, again, a lot of the major beauty brands. Henkel and L'Oreal are some of our biggest client partners that we're really proud of having within the portfolio.
Amazing. How would they describe working with Stella Rising, the culture you guys bring across? How would someone like L'Oreal, Henkel describe the collaboration with you guys?
Yeah. Well, so I think one of the common themes that I've heard from them, and something that I guess more comes back to the way that we philosophically approach business partnership, is that we're really flexible. Within SEO servicing, you often that the work takes you interesting places. I think our commitment to client results and the client outcomes and ultimately driving profitable growth for our client partners, as the North Star, can lead us at times to needing to flex or pick up something that was maybe not initially provisioned for in the scope or something like that. And it's not that we're out here doing all sorts of stuff that wasn't scoped. But the idea is that we really try to never come back to clients and be like, oh, sorry, we can't do that. We didn't scope for it, right? Or we didn't anticipate that. So we can't do that. Let's go through this big process and let's make it really painful for you. We really try to make it smooth within reason. We need to make sure that the work is predictable to an extent that we can effectively staff it. But ultimately, we aim to be really, really flexible. And a lot of our client partners have shared with one of the things they like about us. I'd say the other thing is the expertise and the commitment to results. So I mentioned the commitment to results, but we're really deeply expert within the beauty category. We attract a lot of people on the SEO team that want to work on these beauty clients. And so they come to us specifically because of the work doing as an SEO team and sort of being on the cutting edge of things. But at the same time, they're interested in with the types of clients that we get. And so we have people who are stoked to work every day and work on these beauty brands where they're doing the type of work that they want to do on brands that they're interested in.
Amazing. Let's talk about SEO and GEO now. I know you've been very passionate. You said you are a very passionate person. SEO and GEO. You've been building things. You've been always at the forefront, I would say, of AI search. Walk us through that story, your story. What were the moments where you realized this is now becoming a thing? To get involved in this, I need to go deep on GEO, on AI search.
Yeah.
Was there an aha moment? How did that journey look like for you?
So I'll be really transparent. So from an adoption of AI tools perspective, I was like pretty much instantly enamored with ChatGPT and using it every day for everything. But even in the same token, I felt a bit of this kind of ostrich thing that we saw with people at the beginning of this. Yeah, it's cool and all, but like things aren't going to change that much. Everything that we're doing now is going to be the same. I think for like a minute, and I'm talking like 2023, maybe 20, right when it came out, basically, was sort of thinking some of what you heard in kind of the like mid 2024 refrain of like GEO shouldn't be its own acronym. This isn't a thing. Everything's the same, and sort of like dismissing it in that context. It's not that I was thinking that, but I was like not necessarily seeing the nature of the truly unique. I didn't quite get it, right? And I think to truly understand the nature of the unique work and defend it as its own practice, you need to really understand the work at hand. And so that aha moment of ostensibly it being hadn't really clicked. And so the sort of differentiation and the uniqueness of what we're trying to do within it wasn't abundantly clear. That would be sort of like my story arc, and like what kind of did it for me is really I implore anyone like GEO is the same thing. It's like take a bunch of prompts that you care about for your client, run them, and then look at wheel or look at, in your case, a bar, right, of like the sources of citation and where they're coming from. And then, think about your play. What are you going to do? How do you want to influence that? It's different than what we've been doing. So that for me, I guess, kind of buttons up in one sort of phrase. But like, yeah, it was when we started to really see also the changing landscape. Again, I don't think it took us that long when everyone's like, where's all of our traffic going? ChatGPT, like we were getting ready far before that. We started building our own sort of like way of tracking things internally when we were looking around for tools and we couldn't find anything. This is like when Seer was just talking about coming out with theirs. We jumped on board with you guys pretty early on.
How did the conversations on the client side evolve over time? Where's all the traffic going to? Well, what is our AI search strategy? How did clients think about GEO a year ago?
Luckily, I think we're encountering a lot of client partners that are beginning to understand it much more. I don't think anyone loves how difficult it is to measure. Outside of prompts, but like truly, like when you start impact and how visibility equals money, we really start to have to borrow more from the brand marketer playbook as opposed to the direct response marketer playbook, which is where we all come from. So it's a little alien to a lot of people when we start to get in those like executive conversations. Those are more like, I guess that's where we're at now. So if you're not already there, I can tell you what's going to happen with your clients. They're all very much enamored with this to begin with. First, they're like, what is this thing and should we care about it? That moment already happened. That moment already passed. Most executives are convinced by the dude on LinkedIn that they've been following that they should care about it. And they're even questioning whether or not they should abandon their SEO budget. So then you have to go and you have to negotiate that conversation and navigate those waters. Now that all of the executive level, in fact, honestly, what I've seen, which I'm applauding and I'm happy with ultimately, is I've never seen such an interest in SEO by executives asking questions about GEO. And I will give most brands credit that they understand that they are very similar. That comes down from the executive tier. What are we doing about GEO? We must be doing stuff about this AI visibility. CMO or director person goes out to market and is essentially agency partners like us, and very often understand it's not just the GEO, it's all this other stuff that we need to do to get the work done. And so we went from a place where clients were starting to understand it, rightly so, it was so new, to where now a lot of our client partners, when I approach them and I say, listen, the play here is we need to be doing GEO, we need to be doing core SEO, we need to be doing social search, and we need to be producing content.
Nice, cool. So you renegotiated the SEO budgets, it's still there. we've unlocked the understanding for why brands need to care about brand, why they need to care about content. Can you give us a couple of examples, be it on maybe named clients or maybe just anonymously? What's the most typical GEO play? Is there a most typical GEO play at hand right now for your teams that you execute?
Yeah. So I think about this in a few different pockets. Now, if we're talking about bottom of funnel transactional terms, those that we as marketers should primarily be focused on for our clients to begin with, it's a lot of PDPs. The category page used to be the SEO's. Most of my career, it was all about creating category pages and optimizing category. And the PDP layer was primarily brand terms and some esoteric keywords. Google and AI systems are now aiming, systems, whatever, the AI chats or whatever are aiming to become basically the category page. They want to be the aggregator and the curator of the PDP. So the PDP becomes the layer that we need to really think about the key optimization of. And so this is where I'm going to try to move past this one real quick because I don't want to get bogged down, but like, we're not out here pitching everyone does FAQ schema, but we're definitely doing a lot of FAQs on pages because it's not the schema that's driving it. It's the presence of the structured question and answer content on the page. And so we're looking at how are we basically optimizing PDPs. It's how to use it. It's ingredients. It's our nevers. It's a lot of the same, to be honest, that we were recommending previously. But the why here is a bit different. And the why, honestly, usually maps back to these really specific prompts that we're trying to up where and the product is being presented adequately as the solution. So I would say that's from an on-site perspective, a huge amount of the play is the PDP content play. So if we're swimming further upstream and we're talking about informational content, this is again, and I'm not faulting brands, but it's one of those moments. So you mean to tell me we should be putting blogs on our website that answer questions users have? Let's go. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Let's do it, right? And there's a renewed energy there's a new why for that which we as SEOs have some level of familiarity with. There's a lot of and I'm not trying to say that GEO is not a unique thing. There's a lot of things outside of the onsite, right? Before we weren't getting much buy-in to talk about clients' social strategy as part of our social play or as part of our SEO play, our general search play.
Yeah.
That's, I think, that one of the biggest for maybe points of differentiation in that, okay, we're coming to our clients with a holistic approach that says when we look at the sources of citation, very typically for beauty brands, anywhere from, let's say, 7 to 20% of those citations are coming from social. And our studies indicate, so this is where I can hit you with some fun numbers. So we did an analysis using OtterlyAI data. True story. So I think we're tracking about 4,500 prompts. This is not meant to be a plug, but the API is great. You should be using Thomas's API. So we're using the API to crank these 4,500 prompts. Let's just imagine one of the world's biggest beauty conglomerates. We're cranking data across a bunch of these brands into this dashboard. Within this dashboard, we started to unpack some questions. The first question we had is, are we able to actually influence citation with social content? Is the stuff we're putting out getting into citation? The answer is yes. So we looked at a huge number of citations, 1.8 million citations. Of those 1.8 million citations, 279,000 are social. It's not an insignificant sum. Now, of those, it's singled, but 5% belong to this brand. Their videos are showing up in literally thousands of these citations. There is a clear path, in my opinion, for saying, and it sounds really obvious, but if you're wanting to go after something like how to do your eyebrows and you produce a really well done video about how to do your eyebrows, then you're going to end up showing up for it. The reality is that a lot of social has moved into the direction of the sort of playbook of the classical organic social, which is all about ephemerality, For You page going viral, brand moments. It's not necessarily evergreen focused. The whole thesis here, brands will get a huge amount of increased value out of creating a hybridized organic social approach that aims to both keep their audience aware of what's happening and then educate their audience as if it is their job to bring them their expertise in the same way that we've always been preaching to do this on the blog.
Love it. evergreen content on social. I have to ask you, John, in that study, in that research, which social channels did pop up?
Oh, good question. So one of the things that we also were able to unpack with your data set, we always get asked about Reddit. How do we get in Reddit? Is Reddit doesn't want you there. It's a tough question, and we have plays for that. But when you really look at the sources of citation across, and Reddit is the dominant source of citation social just within ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is not the only game in town. When you look across Perplexity, Google AI Mode, Google AI Overviews, and Gemini, it's a much more sort of like homogenous mix. You're talking about like 20, 30, 40% type. It's where we're saying Reddit is tough to get in, but YouTube and TikTok are just as much of a source of citation when you look broadly across this ecosystem. I want to say it's easy, but it is literally welcomed for brands to create that content. If you're doing a good job, the ecosystem will reward you. I think even if you do a good job in Reddit, I think Reddit is, I'm a Redditor, so I could say this kind of honest. I think they firmly just do not want brands there. You can do an AMA, but nobody wants brands doing community management, popping onto threads and being like, oh, I heard you're looking for a moisturizer. Just not, And so I don't really see, and we've analyzed this too in the same data set, how many of these prompts come from, the Reddit citations are AMAs, or how many of these are from brand profiles, how many, it's cited for the exact reason you would think. It's the community. I think I've heard a lot of people get a little maybe overly focused on the Reddit piece. Our point is, I've said to someone yesterday, you're asking me what the Reddit play is, and I'll ask you what your YouTube play is. Because that's where we think you probably ought to be from a citation perspective.
Love that take. You mentioned ChatGPT is not the only one in town. The top 3 search engines your clients want to be found in?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows. No, I think honestly it's still Google. So number 1 is still Google in terms of searching. ChatGPT is coming up a ton, but I think probably everyone watching right now's own utilization has evolved to include Claude much more. Hearing that from clients and be like, well, are you including Claude in your data set? I've heard some clients ask me about Copilot and where they're hoping to show up. It really depends on the client. Not incidentally, even with it being potentially a source for some of these answers, clients are not, hey, what's going on in Bing? Are we doing, Bing Webmaster Tools, or are we tracking Bing? I would think people would be asking, but they're not. So really it's primarily Google, ChatGPT, and then either Perplexity or Claude, depending on what that individual uses out, in their own day-to-day. They'll kind of typically how things are happening in that landscape.
Okay, nice. You mentioned earlier it's a brand channel, and as SEO experts, we have to kind of forget all the historical knowledge of optimizing it for performance, for clicks, for traffic. Yeah. What are the top, I don't know, 1 metrics that absolutely need to be on a GEO performance report? What are you tracking? What's important for you and your clients from a KPI perspective?
I think we have to include new stuff in our tool set, but we should still be if you aim to optimize your AI approach, which is virtually impossible clicks out of 4 clicks, then you're probably aiming in the right place. So I think we should still be trying to, in other words, let me frame it in a really hyperbolic way, which is oh, you don't get any clicks out of it, so let's just go after a bunch of who, what, when, where questions, and that's our AI play. It's not going to drive business value whether AI is in the picture or not. So we should still be thinking about things that someone would likely click or would want to click. We should still be right here toward the bottom of the funnel with our approach if this is something we're expecting an ROI out of. The reality is that we're not going to see as many clicks directly to that as we would be used to, and we wouldn't be able to measure conversion in the way that we would still typically as much, but we should still do that. So to your points about one of the metrics, right, we should still be looking at referral traffic and any accrued revenue or conversions from referral traffic from AI. And I would say that I wouldn't call that your most important metric, because again, we know that is a correlative measure, if you will, that there's more of it. But it's one of the things. I think another thing that clients are often coming to us and wanting to better understand is not just how often I'm showing up, but how often am I the answer, the one that people want, the one that's being recommended. This share of voice metric becomes really important. We just built a tool at Stella, primarily an internal analysis tool. So it's not a SaaS product, but it's called Search Track. And the idea of creating a unified share of voice metric across You're going right to the product team with this, I know. It's a shared unified metric of share of voice across all of search. And so we're looking at paid search, and we even crank your data. We're ready to handle Otterly data. And we create this unified share of voice metric again, because we really believe that as we're moving, for a lot of this is about how often we're being seen and how much of that like share of that sort of mind share that we're owning, share of voice can become an important metric that we look at. So I'd say actual accrued clicks and revenue, share of voice, cheat here, and I'll say like a sort of set of metrics. Are these other correlative metrics. And that's what I meant about pulling from the book of brand marketers. Brand marketers don't always have direct measure. They have to rely on correlative measures, have to rely on lift studies or these other very well accepted and documented by people who are much smarter than me methodologies of backing into, did this thing work? And I think as direct response marketers, we have to start to learn those things. And so again, coming back, I built a little ditty internally called Brand Track that helps us to look at the correlation between, let's say, views on YouTube or views in TikTok and brand searches. I believe one of the key outputs of all of this should be that people search your brand more. The argument of like, they're going to see us and then something magical. What is the magical thing? They're probably going to search your brand name, right? And so if the brand awareness, if the brand visibility is, it ought to manifest itself at some point in increases in brand search. So that's the other sort of like correlative metric that I'm advocating we start to look at. But it's really tough because other things are going to impact that. But that's where it comes to. Brand marketers also don't get too hung up on in terms of like, was it this billboard or that billboard? It's the holistic impact. We have to start like figuring out new ways of talking about this stuff.
Good. Super cool. Let's talk quickly about OtterlyAI and your life with OtterlyAI. What has been most better teams you?
When I met you guys, it was like, oh, these guys are chill. They're search marketers. They come from the space. It's flexible to work with you guys. You're not really trying to come at things from this like dodgy enterprise, like you tell how much money we can make off you kind of transparent pricing and competitive pricing as compared to the marketplace. Why Otterly really stood out for us. And I think Otterly honestly fit the bill in that regard. But then when I got into the tech, it's as good as the other stuff that people want to spend a lot more money for. So now flash forward, and there's a lot of other great things I could say. You know, like Thomas has been an amazing resource and helps us with information and everything like that. But even if you don't ever get to like hang out with Thomas like I do, the platform itself offers some really cool features, namely the continued evolution of the features is something I think is great. They're always releasing new stuff. And then the API. So the API is something that we've gotten tremendous value out. As I'm mentioning, we're now using it to pump data and like do these really almost like big data to do. I would have to go into the tool for like 50 million things to get the ability to communicate to you guys all of those citations and the distillation of that and where the citations are coming from. So the API has been a really like transformative tool for us. So I think the more recent features and platform releases have been hugely supportive to us. Case studies, us telling narratives like the one you just heard.
What's the one thing where you're like, OtterlyAI is for me the best AI search analytics product because?
Is the best AI analytics product because they make it easy for me. And the easy for me maps back to the way that I use it in terms of the API, as well as just the continued flexibility around cost structure, monthly commitment, great discounts if we want to pay annually and everything like that. So the fact that Otterly makes it easy for me, and I'd say that's it. You said one sentence, so I won't say that I trust you guys.
Amazing. Looking ahead, let's recap on also some successes and let's look ahead. What do you think are the most positive outcomes for you as Stella Rising and also for your clients as you think about both Otterly as a product but also AI search in general? What's the biggest positive thing that happened to you?
So the story went like this. As part of one of our commitments for our client, we wanted what we're calling like a sort of quarterly competitive dashboard, and this sort of gives like a competitive field landscape. We wanted to build a competitive landscape analysis, sort of like dashboard that looked at visibility across different categories for a huge number of different brands. And so I started doing it by literally just exporting all the data. And it was like that week that I asked you, hey, do you guys maybe have an API? You would just happen to come out with it. So I got access to it. And that first experience of being able to crank all of this data into this dashboard gave me this sort of idea, a way that I believe we as marketers should probably be approaching reporting in the future, which is that instead of it being a PowerPoint presentation, instead of it being like a Word doc, what if reporting is like a Vercel link, is like completely customized or whatever? I'm not meaning to pitch Vercel. I don't know how Vercel and Supabase coders, but there's other ways to do these things. Anyway, so it could be a Vercel link, it could be a Cloudflare link. It doesn't matter. It's a live web experience, and you have the data on the back end, but you're manipulating it specific to that client's branding, answering the questions that that client has, and then basically working with Claude Code as your like UI control for this dashboard. And once I had that experience with your data and again Claude, right? Not to plug some other tools, but it's like I was like, I never want to go into Data Studio. I mean, I haven't been in Data Studio like that. Like I wouldn't if I was doing daily reporting for a client, I would just 100% of the time be doing this type of custom thing. And it kind of was like a mental unlock that gave me ideas around product and the way that I want to approach things and the way that I think we should be evolving. I think that was probably the biggest like aha moment for me. Broader than just Otterly, but really predicated on your you knew that was going to happen. That's why you released the API. You're innovative, right? And you knew that people were going to be like, what can I do with this? And come up with cool stuff. That's where I think that was, cool that you guys did that.
Love it. Yeah, just to comment on that. I mean, I couldn't sleep for days because I was like, this is gonna change reporting and so much, right? And I mean, not only our API, but in general, if you think about reporting and how it's historically been done, very static, it's living in silos, it's sitting in Tableau sites or whatever dashboards.
Yeah.
And it's not being used, right? I think we as marketers, we as businesses people haven't been using those insights so much. I think when Claude came around, when the whole MCP kind of became a thing, it was like, oh my God, it's a whole new world. And we'll never go back to Tableau, right? We're going to keep chatting with our data. We keep building custom reports and interactive stuff. And
yeah,
it's a whole new thing. Looking ahead, maybe one last question, John. What gets you excited day in and day out if you think about the next stages of GEO?
I want to better close the gap on business impact. And I think that there's probably ways stuff. My mind keeps going. I think there's already some products there, but I'd like to, I'm not even stingy with the ideas. If you want to build this first and sell it to me, by all means, anyone. But like there's post-purchase surveys. But then how do you kind of get that layer deeper and like almost annoy the person and be like, oh, do you remember what you searched? Enter the prompt here. And like have like almost like a type form level post-purchase survey. Also grabs revenue data off the page. I want to put together, we can really confidently, this is the impact that AI has. So we've all seen the stats. There's recent studies show that 20% of beauty purchases were influenced by AI. And so people are citing that AI is what led them to the page. We as marketers are just not really asking them. We're looking at a lot of like last click attribution and the way that we've classically done. It's like, wow, Google, Facebook, killing her. So whatever the channel that, channel attribution we're looking at. And that's pretty typical to the space. I think we need to figure out that piece. That's what I'm excited about. Figuring out complex problems and then, decent solutions for how we look at them is the stuff that has me excited. Also not sleeping as much as I should.
Love it. Cool. Any final words? Where can people find you on the internet, John?
So, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm occasionally active on Twitter at John Morabito SEO. And the other place would be jmorabito at stellarising.com. If you're interested in us using Otterly and taking a look under the hood at your site and seeing where things stand, I'd be happy to. We love to do free audits for people and show them where there's opportunity within their AI search. So that's probably the most fun way to get in touch with me is to get a free audit and see where you stand.
Cool. Love it. Thanks so much, John, for joining us.